Hi everybody, Mr. Pash here. In this video tutorial, I'm going to teach you guys how to draw a sphere, which is a 3D form based off of a circle, obviously. And I'm going to go over the main, 5 main components of light and shadow and make sure we're applying it to them, as well as teach you guys some incremental steps on how to build up our sphere from dark to light, or sorry, from light to dark, to make it as 3D as possible. So let's get started. What we want to do is just kind of give ourselves a light outline of the circle, something that's about 1.5 inches in diameter. Okay, and with 3D forms, there's not always edges sometimes. You can see here that, you know, the edge over here is really dark, but when we get over here, there's kind of gets open. There's not a dark edge there. So we're going to start off really light. You guys can see that. We're also going to map out where the cast shadow is. Just loosely right there. You know, keeping that light. And what we want to do first is, what I like to do is just kind of fill it in as light as I can all the way through, just a nice light base. This is a value step that most people forget. They kind of tend to just go pure white and dark. They forget about everything in between. The more value steps that you guys can add to your drawings and illustrations, the more 3D it's going to look. So I'm going to start off with really good references. Looking on the computer on your screen, you'll actually see a little bit more range of values. You guys looking on the video, it looks like the highlight's about yay big, but it's really small. This is very, very light gray. Okay, so when you fill this in, just kind of notice my hands on the back of my pencil. I'm just kind of lightly, I'm not using any pressure. I'm just letting the pencil do the work. Make sure you guys are using regular pencils, not mechanical pencils for this. Mechanical pencils are just, the edges are way too fine and it'll just create too many lines and it'll take a while to fill in. The regular pencil, when we flip them on the side, you know, we have some thickness there, so it's easier to just kind of fill and they're easier to hold, okay? So light fill in here. Then what we tend to do is we'll map out where the form shadows are, or they're also called core or form shadows. And so we get this really curved shadow right here. And this is the darkest part on the object. A lot of people think that, and I'll zoom in here, the darkest part of the object is actually on the other side. We have light coming in from this direction. People automatically think, okay, well, it's obviously on the other side, it's the darkest. When in fact, that's not usually the case. So when we have an object inside of a room or sitting on top of a table, what we get is reflective light that bounces off of the surface back onto the object on the opposite side. So you get a little bit of lighter area here, okay? So we want to leave a little bit of lighter area and we want to start mapping out where this core shadow is. So we're going to start going a little bit darker for sure. And looks like we'll wrap around and that dark edge kind of look right here. See how it gets dark to the edge here, but then it stops. Gets kind of like light gray or medium gray towards the edges over there. So keep that in mind. Nice round curved shape. Now, if this is not really curved, if you're just going to go slightly curved, it's not going to look like a ball. It's going to look somewhat flat. Okay. Now I'm using a 2H, which is a lighter pencil. For you guys that didn't get to buy drawing pencils, you won't have the opportunity to use these. So naturally it's a little bit lighter. You know, even when you push down a little bit, it won't get too dark. And I'm already starting to blend into that really light gray that I have, okay? Now another aspect that's the darkest is where the cast shadow meets the object, right, on the form. So the cast shadow is cast from the object. The form shadow is the shadow on the object. So I'm going to fill this in a little bit darker, and this is the darkest spot right here. Okay, so the darkest spot is not on the object, but right on the side of it there. Okay, that looks pretty good. And it goes off this way. All right. Now keep in mind, this looks really bright right now, but the reflective light is usually not, excuse me, as bright as the highlight. It's still in the shadow side, so usually it's more of a mid-tone gray, so just kind of keep that light for now. Okay, so here we have all the basic components, almost all of them there. So now we just need to get darker. So now I'm going to go to a 2B, or actually I'll go to a HB, which is more like a regular number 2 pencil, okay? And now I'm going to go, I know that this is the darkest, look how much darker that went already. There. Make sure on those darker parts where they, you know, where they're on the edges, that those are really clean. That's what actually like defines your image. It makes it pop out, okay? Think about like HD, you know, I don't know. Or you're putting like, you know, if your vision was blurred and you're putting glasses on or something, you know, like that's what it's going to do. It's going to add detail there. All right, so we're going to make the edges a little bit fuzzy here on the outside. Just as you notice, even cast shadows have dark and light spots. They're not just flat, depending on the light source, of course. Now during through the day, shadows kind of change aspects depending on the position of the sun. And for all us art nerds out here, if you really want to know what this is called in here, this is called a occlusion shadow. So the terminology gets pretty deep sometimes. But I don't know, maybe you'll need to know that one day. Maybe you'll be on Jeopardy one day, I don't know. It's an occlusion shadow. It's the darkest part of the cast shadow there. Okay. All right, now let's get back to the sphere. We notice we got the ball. Notice we haven't outlined anything unless it was right here where that form shadow kind of hits the edges there. Usually you'll look at where the cast shadow starts. That's usually where the form shadow edge will stop. Okay, so again, these are like little steps that artists can follow and they look for when they're looking at an object. Okay. And this is when people that draw really well, I mean, they've had so much practice. They know what to look for. They know what things kind of should look like. And that's what we're starting with here. This is about at least the 100th sphere I've drawn in my life, at least. I don't even know how many. All right, so here I'm slowly building up, and here's that core shadow right in the middle there. This is gonna be the darkest part, so I'm not afraid to go as dark as I can here. It's like that. Making sure I'm leaving some space for that reflective light. Really pushing down here. Noticing how thick this is. I mean, this form shadow is really thick, so start pushing down a little bit more thicker. Make sure I got staying with that curve. Make sure I'm really clean edge here. Okay, let's see if that works. All right. So basically what I have now on the sphere is just my really light tone and my darkest tone. And that's a great way to start off. And then you just kind of want to work in between, okay? So even on the core shadow side, there's a little bit of fuzzy edge right here. Kind of blends into the reflective light. And we'll kind of keep that a little lightish right now. Okay. All right, I'll go a little bit darker here. Kind of refine that edge there. And then, so then I want this to wrap around here, okay? Can't shade it flat. So I'm gonna hold my pencil on towards the back really light, and I'm not trying to add a lot of pressure on this. And notice that the highlight is right around here, it's not here. So now with my next step of value, let's call this a 1. This really, really light gray, as light as you can go. Let's go with the 2. And I'm not having you guys do the value scales on this one. You guys are going straight to the sphere here. Okay. And you're going to get some lines. Usually it's not best to work with a super sharp pencil. And I'm going flat, but I'm making sure I'm curving around here. Okay, I'm getting a little blotchy. Okay, probably have the 2. The 2-step. Okay, now I'm gonna start kind of blending in. Hold this a little bit quicker. Now, some of you guys might also want to start blending with your finger. Don't do that. Okay, don't blend with your finger to get the value. You could do that with like charcoal and really darker pencils. But for graphite drawings like this, you really want to build it up with the pencil. Okay. A couple things that happens there is that usually you'll smudge the edges when you do that. And actually when you smudge too, the oils in your hands get bounded or binded with the, don't know the term, binded with the graphite and into the paper. And sometimes when you overlap it again, you'll see like a blotch. And then you'll try to erase it, and then it won't erase. It's just like, it's like a little greasy spot. Some of you guys might have noticed that before in your previous drawings. Usually when you use your finger, it's because you have all these lines, and you just want to soften that. So you just kind of just a little bit there. All right. All right, looking pretty good. Okay, that's looking pretty good. A little blotchy right there, but I think that's okay. Okay, and I filled this whole thing up with light gray. For a highlight, if you have a mechanical pencil, these little plastic erasers work great, and that highlight is just like right here. Kind of just lightly erase away that highlight there. Kind of blow this stuff away if you can. All right, now I'll just kind of lightly use my fingers, blend in. I like to make sure I have all the layers of value built up before I do. Notice that I'm blending kind of in a curved manner too. Okay, overlap that again. All right, so now the final cleanup looks pretty good. I'll make sure, especially the really dark edges, I'll Make sure I really clean those up and define those with a nice dark edge. And I'll make sure I can go as dark as I can go, especially in the middle of the core shadow there. Make sure I get that round shape. It'll kind of blend here. Ooh, look at that. Okay. Kind of soft edge. That cast shadow there. And make this look really realistic. You notice kind of like there's some back space back there. You can kind of fill that in, which is a nice light gray, kind of make it look like it's really sitting on the table there. All right, looking pretty good, and that's it. So hopefully that helped you guys out. We want to build up light to dark, and we're looking for the highlight, good range of midtones, our core or form shadow. Make sure you really got the reflective light in there, make it look really natural, and then our cast shadow in there with some blurry edges there.